Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to tonight's virtual author event presented in collaboration with Miami Book Fair, Lit Hub, and Culture Crusaders. We want to give a special shout out to the Miami Book Fair Speak Up Summer Camp attendees who are with us tonight. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for supporting a locally owned independent bookstore in Books and Books by showing up and hopefully grabbing a book. Tonight, we are beyond thrilled to be able to host our very own local author, Romina Garber, in conversation with the incredible Tomi Adeyemi about a book we feel is so timely and important. Lobizona is a book that explores the very concept of a person being illegal, and it uses folklore and fantasy to do this in such a compelling and beautiful way. Romina Garber is a New York Times and international bestselling author. Originally from Argentina, she landed her first writing gig as a teen, a weekly column for the Miami Herald that was later nationally syndicated, and she hasn't stopped writing since. When she's not working on a novel, Romina can be found producing movie trailers, taking photographs, or daydreaming about buying a new drum set. She's a graduate of Harvard College and a Virgo to the core, which I love. Tomi Adeyemi is a Nigerian-American writer and creative writing coach based in San Diego, California. After graduating from Harvard University with an honors degree in English literature, she received a fellowship that allowed her to study West African mythology, religion, and culture in Salvador, Brazil. Her first novel is Children of Blood and Bone, I'm sure everyone's familiar with. And when she's not working on her novels, she's watching BTS music videos. She can be found blogging and teaching creative writing on her website. So before I hand this over to Romina and Tomi, I just want to point out a couple of buttons on your screen. One will allow you to order a signed and personalized copy of Lobizona, which is the green button directly below us. It'll be there all night. She will sign it Monday and we'll ship it right after. You can do this, And then if you guys would like to submit a question, the other button is the Q&A button, which is just slightly to the right on your screen. So it says ask a question. I'll be using that to moderate the Q&A portion. And Romina's happy to take questions in English or Spanish. So without further ado, I will hand this to Romina and Tomi, our esteemed guests. Hello. Hi. Bye.
Oh.
Can you hear that? Yeah, you're that. What?
We're so
Yeah, what is this? Are we at a club?
Okay, how is this?
Good.
We fixed it?
I think so.
You guys, can you let us know in the chat?
Yeah, can you tell us in the chat?
Because I see Lucy. I'm so excited. I see it's all good.
All good. We're good.
It's a little echoey for us, but that's okay because we love the sounds of our voices. So
The universe is tuning in right now.
I'm so excited. I believe that life is like a silent rave, and every now and then you run into someone who's dancing to the same beat, and I feel like that has been our lives. And our books, and the book poster for this was so amazing because we both look like our protagonists. So I just want to take this time, the time where we're asking questions to each other. I just want to discuss where you are right now and discuss how this story came to be and like what parts of it that you think represent parts of you and what do you think is the role of art right now. So I'm just gonna dive in. So 2020, we're alive.
Was
right
that the
now.
punchline? 2020.
I just want to talk about where you are right now. This year, it's really beyond words. The fact that like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, the Pentagon said we had alien ships. And we're like, dude, it's so crazy, we don't even care. So I just want to know, where are you? What do you feel like this year and this quarantine took from you, but then also what do you feel like it gave to you? And what are your hopes for the future right now? And I know future is a weird word because we don't know how long we're going to be doing this. But yeah, before we get into this, let's talk about where you are today. Let's talk about Romina Garber today.
I am so happy to be doing this with you. I'm like everyone else trying to get through this dystopia that has become our new reality. And you know this well, when I was working on this book, the only thing I cared about was that it come out before the election. I remember telling you this nonstop. All I care about, nothing else matters but that it come out before the election, because I thought we'd be counting votes, not virus infections right now. I really thought that this would be a time where we'd be reviewing that person's greatest hits,
Yes.
and just really letting that montage roll. And so, it's definitely a shock to the system. And I think some of the stuff I'm taking away from this is how much of my life I spend in that word you said, future. I am always 2 steps forward and moving too quick to look at what's around me. And I think that this time has really done that for me. It slowed time down, to the point where it feels like this elastic band almost, and it feels like it's been stretching since March. And I'm just like, when is it just gonna snap, but in the meantime, I'm noticing all the beautiful molecules of time and things that make up our reality. And I think the biggest lesson I'm taking from it is the number one resource in this world and currency and everything is time, and particular time with our loved ones. And it's really making me reassess what my values are, just like I think it is for industries, for whole populations, for the world. And so, and of course, I still think that the message of this book was important and the timing is very important. I just think I see where it fits now in the bigger picture of everything. And I understand now how this is important, but so many other discussions we're having are important. And this time that we have, we're able to have those talks. How about you?
Every time you say time, you promise I'm not echoing, guys?
The slightest bit, but not in a disruptive way. I can understand. Okay. Everything's good. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Every time you said time, I heard the music from Inception when Leonardo DiCaprio was going to maybe children, maybe other dream within a dream, and then it's just and it's all in slow motion in the sunlight, because I feel like that too. In the sense where you're when you feel air on your face, you're in a freaking Dove commercial, because now it's a luxury to feel air on your face. Or when you feel sunlight, it's
yes.
All these really little things. You're wow, this is awesome.
It's so true. I spent the first month yeah. Do you remember I spent the first month just photographing the birds outside the window? And that's all I was putting in my story. And people are all right, these are 15 stories of the same birds' routines, what? But it gives you time to smell the roses, I don't know. And I say that and recognizing the privilege of saying that, right? Because this is not equal for everyone. And I know we're going to get into that anyway. I'm just, we're staying positive now, but it is it's a total privilege. But I think that that's the point. If you have the privilege right now of slowing down and really looking, how about looking beyond your what's immediately in front of you, to the community, and expanding a little and seeing who doesn't have that luxury right now, what isn't working. And maybe this is the time that a lot of solutions can spring from, we could do something with this time.
I feel in the first stage of quarantine, that's where I was too, where I'm if I am lucky enough to 1, have a roof over my head, and 2, have food on my plate, and 3, be breathing, because it's also a respiratory
yes.
So it's literally you can't take a breath for granted because you're looking at all these tweets and all of these stories about how difficult it is to literally breathe. I was like, okay, you got to do something. You're not really allowed to, I don't want to say wallow, but and I don't know if that's immigrant too, where it's like you're not allowed to think about how bad it is right now. You're not allowed to think about how sad you are. Can you walk? Can you breathe? Can you eat?
Yes.
Do something for yourself. Do something for someone else. Like, I feel, and it's so weird because we're dealing with this one very visible threat, but all of the threats were always there.
Exactly.
Like, it's like we have a name for this one. We can kind of count it a little bit. And so it's like we're staring at, it's basically like a dementor. It's like we have our first dementor and we know all the other ones are there, but the first one, like, I could really die.
Yeah, this is the one sucking out your soul right now.
Yes,
you know?
exactly. We're all like Patronum with our mask. And I don't know. I just feel not in a weird way. I think it's just closing so much of the world down does force you to sit with yourself. And then it does force you to remember all those things that you, like the sun or like air or like time.
Yes.
And then I feel like it's moved me more from what if this is my last day? What if this is my last day? What if, to like, all I'm certain of is I literally have the second I'm alive right now saying this right now. So let me make sure I'm using that only thing that I'm sure of in the right place or in the right way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I feel like as creators, for us, often that energy goes into creating, like that's sort of the whole thing. We create, so we exist, and I feel like so for me, I like feel like I cheated a little bit because in the beginning I was on deadline. I mean, this because I was a mess, but like I was like really a wreck about this deadline. And so I was almost able to escape into that cave that you go into when you're like, you know what, like this book is going to be done in a few weeks. So now I'm just totally like immersed in it and everything. And so I feel like I left that cave maybe mid-April. And then kind of it hit me that this was happening. And at that point, it was harder to kind of come up with new stuff to create and like pull that hope from somewhere. But there have been, like, if I'm being completely honest, I am emotionally in a better place than I was when I was writing Lobizona. And because I remember a call we had where I was sobbing, and it was very hard to write. And I've said this to so many people now, so I have to say this to you. You really helped me get through this so much, our talks and just kind of telling you how powerless I felt, to take on something like this, but then be in the privilege of my apartment writing it, and kind of this idea of like, what is my role? And you said to me, this is how we fight. This is how we take up arms. These are our weapons. You got me through that, and I love that. I love it. I know. Seriously.
I love it too.
I did not imagine this. I could not imagine this, but I felt you could, Yes.
And even I couldn't imagine that. Like, my favorite thing about it is how magical the cover is. Because it's literally the kind where you're like, and then it starts moving, and then you're like, is that my mind? Or is that the thing? Or is that the magic? And I'm always inclined to believe in the magic. So it's real.
It's so real.
And while we are talking about making the impossible possible, something I've found, even just within my very first trilogy, is that you are such a different person with every book you write, let alone with every series you write, let alone writing the book and publishing the book. And you kind of talked about that, but I would love to know, especially because I assume we have a lot of writers. Like, if you're a writer in the chat right now, I want you to go like, hey, I'm a writer. Like, do it. Like, do it so we know. And we can
come on, Nietzsche. I know you're there. I see
we have to do it. Nietzsche, if you, I see you, Nietzsche. I see you.
Own it.
I see you.
I know. I'm like, is this Frozen?
Oh, yeah, I see Froze. What, are we talking to ourselves?
Oh, no.
Okay, we said A. We're good. We're not Frozen. A, okay, we got it. All the A's are going. So, I think we have so many writers here, and part of being a writer, part of going from a writer to an artist is like just getting in touch with who you are whenever you are putting something to the page. So I'd love if you could talk us through the journey, but I want to go from the beginning. Like, I want to talk about the Romina who wrote Zodiac and the Romina who fought so that I can have this in my hands. And just the Romina who's sitting here with her poppin' poster and red lipstick. So just take us through every shade of Romina.
Sure. Shout out to my sister who got this done for me for today. Sisters, I mean, come on. So yes, Romina Russell, who wrote Zodiac. She's an interesting character. I think I came into Zodiac in a weird way. I hated Ro, the protagonist of Zodiac, for being so naive and hopeful and idealistic.
Like a Netflix.
You know what? You're right. I should start there. So Zodiac is a 4-book sci-fi fantasy series set in another galaxy where the different planetary systems are inspired by the different zodiac houses. So I'm a Virgo. I'm very controlling, obsessive, neurotic, pragmatic, bitchy, like kind of quick with stuff. So, and then my protagonist, Ro, is from House Cancer. And, the way I would describe it is like, I think so much that sometimes I forget to act. And she acts so quickly that sometimes she forgets to think. So I used to just have it out with her in my head. And now looking back, I realize it's because I was her as a writer. Ro was this girl who just like saw the good and was idealistic and wanted to kind of change the world with her words and her honesty and all. And I just felt like I had come in like that too. And Ro gets rejected so many times and humiliated. And Zodiac was my 6th book. I'd written 5 books before Zodiac, all of them rejected. So I feel like I was learning how to get over rejection through her. Then, as you know, Lobizona had actually started as a different book called Yellow Eyes. And in 2008, I had tried to go out with it. So this is before Zodiac, because Zodiac was 2014. And the reaction I got was that American, and I say that like this because Argentina is America, American teens didn't care about Argentine immigrants. And I think like I didn't quite understand what ways that answer impacted the way I consider myself, because I am an Argentine immigrant. So what I really heard was nobody cares about your story, not just my character. So I let it go, and it wasn't until 2016 when this administration took power that story began to haunt me as a real regret. And I just remember struggling with how to get back into it. I remember talking to you. I remember talking to Nicole Maggi, my amazing critique partner, who also got me through this. And like, I just remember really feeling like, I don't know, how to kind of get back into this, because that rejection it was something deeper than just a writing rejection. It was me as a human and my history. So, the Romina who wrote this book is a little bit less, I don't want to curse here, but I'll just say like,
Can we curse here though? It's like the internet.
I definitely cursed in this book and I didn't in Zodiac. Yeah. So that's another.
I can't tell if we could, because I'm like, it's the internet.
I don't know, because I feel like if there's, I'm of two minds, right? Because it's like if there's teens here, whatever. But then on the other hand, I'm like, words are words, and we should be able to.
There's so much crazy stuff on the internet. I'm like, I think I should be able to curse.
I don't know. I think we should too. But yes, it's a very different. And I think the Romina that I am now is someone who really is like, I have more of a vision, like what you were saying, like your first series, you might not exactly know what you're trying to say, but then you start plotting the next one and you start to see a pattern, and you start to see what kind of writer you are, what kind of stories draw you, what are you contributing to the world? What are you saying, right? Because I don't know if we have answers so much as we raise questions. And I think what's important is what's the question of the day? What do we And I think that that's the big thing I'm taking from this.
Yeah. You see that a lot if you like look at Christopher Nolan that way, in that like his early films were like, what's real? It's like, what's a dream and what's real? What's a memory if you lose the memory, and what's real? It's, you know, it's all that stuff. And then it went into Batman, and it's like, what is good and what is evil? And can good overcome? You know, it's like, I'm sure, I mean, for all we know, I'm sure Christopher is watching this right now, and so he'll
I'm
probably
sure.
in the comments.
Hey, Chris, what's
like,
up?
I did plan that. But like from watching him, it seems like, oh no, you were just really immersed in what you were doing every time. And you're just, these are the questions, and these are what you feel like you focus on as a writer. So I love that. And you mentioned vision. You said this Romina has vision. So what is your vision? What is the vision that you at least want to share with this audience?
I mean, I think my vision is a little bit like, it's multifold, right? But I think one of the thing is like a little bit more awareness of language. In particular with this book, freeing myself to write Spanglish, you know, to just write in whatever felt most natural, really liberated me in a lot of ways. Technical difficulties. Yeah. But it really felt very
here. Please keep talking.
Yeah, go fix the thing. It's totally fine. Just recovering with grace is all that matters. Look at the back of that shirt. We have to see the back of that shirt.
Oh,
anyway.
That's true.
I want to see that.
This was just a moment. I'm not like, show the shirt and not the booty. So we're.
Oh God! Look at that. Yeah.
Watch it.
Someone got a screen grab. I forgot what we were talking about.
You said your vision is multifold.
Oh yes.
So more focused on language.
Yes, because something I find myself saying a lot when I talk about this book is, even with access to two languages, I still lack the vocabulary to define myself. You know, and I'm talking about Manu, but I think I'm also talking about a lot of us. Like, it's sort of silly that we try to fit into categories defined by words when we define words. And I think we need to take that power back. And I think we need to like cool it a little bit on language and on depending so much for things that are already written to define us. Like, what is the word undocumented? All it means is unwritten. That's it. That's all it means. And if your story isn't written, you get to tell it how you want. And I think that's the big thing, that narratives, right? Like reclaiming our narratives, like really just owning them and telling them, right? I mean, you do this so well. Like, so, I mean.
No, it's real. It's funny. I think you pay special attention to it when it's your profession.
Yes.
Like in the same way, if you're an architect, you don't just walk into a building, you walk into the building and kind of subconsciously evaluate it.
Yeah.
We don't just do that with books, we do that with story. And so it's sort of this weird thing where you're living your life, but you're also being like narrating your life.
Yes.
But it's kind of like Helen Mirren's voice in your head, but like it's all happening. And so it's like you start to realize, oh my God, I don't want to quote this song, but it's like,
you're doing it.
The rain on your skin, knowing this can feel it. And then skip to the point where she goes, the rest is still unwritten. And you start realizing like, oh, I'm more in control of the ending than you don't get to control the ending, but you can kind of control the direction you drive in, essentially. And when it comes to your story, it's like you tell your story. Your story isn't even what happens to you. It's what you, and I see that so much with like amazing women like Oprah, and like, oh no, you decided your story and then you told it to other people. You didn't say, here is life's things that happened to me. You're like, this is my story. I'm the hero.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
Hero, me, Oprah. But I'm not Oprah. But you kind of do that in your head.
But I agree. And and I mean, the other thing that's so important right now that we should touch on is representation. And that's the other thing that I think is going to be important moving forward. Having had that story shut down specifically because of identity and just this is an identity we're not used to seeing and therefore we're not interested, that points to such a problem with the gatekeepers and with the way that this is like what stories and what voices are getting through. And that's the other thing. We need to go through that door and then we need to hold that door open, And an example of this that came up recently was also with the audiobook, that the audiobook producers, they went out and found an Own Voices Argentine immigrant actress to do the voice and everything. And then we had some problems, because her visa with everything going on with COVID and everything, she had to be sent back on a humanitarian flight to Argentina. So, I mean, the Own Voices angle couldn't have been more relevant. And it seemed like we lost her. And I just remember really putting up a fight, and we all did really to keep her. And we struggled to locate her, to find her, to make sure. And, and I think this is important. I think that when it comes to being able to like bring someone else to the table and whatever, like, we should like get out of our comfort zone a little bit, And I think
there's a time to fight, it's like then. It's like you gotta fight for yourself and then you gotta fight for others.
Yes.
You don't have to fight on Twitter. You don't have to fight in YouTube comments. You literally don't have to fight anywhere else. But you should fight for yourself and then fight for others. That's like the only time it counts.
I agree. And I feel like our friendship in this weird way is a great example of that because we keep lifting each other. And I think that's what it's about.
Romina also, I didn't even tell you guys, Romina was the first person to look me in the eyes and tell me that I was going to be a published author one day. And she was like, I'm telling you, it's going to happen so you don't have to worry about it. You're like, I can tell. Yeah, no, and I remember. And I was like, this lady's smart. I believe, that's really what believing in someone else is. It's like, you don't need to believe in yourself. You just need a smart person to believe in you. And then you're like, I don't think this is the one thing you're being dumb about. You know?
Yeah.
Now, so if it's not a smart person, I don't know. But if it is, then you get to say, okay, why would she be wrong about this?
Yes. And it goes to show how when your friends are kind of reflections of you and reflect you and all this stuff. And I think it goes to show that when you surround yourself with people who are constructive, and want what's best for you, then yes, that is naturally going to happen. And you're going to be like, I like looking at myself in like this reflection in this way that, they see me. And therefore I believe that I can aspire to this. I mean, it's the same thing as raising kids, like with parents' love and everything and believing they, and I think that's important. That's another thing I feel like this time has really kind of, made us reassess our connections and what's feeding us and what's draining us, energy. That's a big thing too. The energy we put out and then the energy we allow in.
So I'm like at this, sometimes I join the audience.
Sometimes I ramble.
Like sometimes I'm like, no, just keep preaching. And so I don't have literally any comeback to that. I was just very lost in that with you. So instead, I want to ask, actually, because I can ask one more question and then we go public.
And then we go to, exactly.
The one question I want to ask, so this is specific on Lobizona. I remember when I wrote CPB, like the emotional reality I wanted to kind of paint a picture of is what it feels like when you're scared of the people who are supposed to protect you. And for me, it was just like, no, I just want you to know, like, you might not understand, but this is what happens in my head. This is what happens in my chest. This is what, when I see this person. And it was purely just because I'm like, if you can understand what it feels like, then we are meeting on the same plane and we can really talk. And
you did such a good job of that. That was like really came across. I mean, that's why the series, like, yes. But I already love where this is going. Yes.
I'm not going to let you, I signed up to accept compliments, but I'm not letting you go any longer. So I felt like the emotional reality, and especially in the beginning, but you do it kind of magically and realistically, is the element of hiding and having to hide. And like in the beginning, we see it in the really small ways. And then as we go, it becomes bigger and bigger and like grander and grander. But I was really struck by like the intimacy of all the limitations you have. If you feel like you literally have to hide from the entire world,
Yeah.
or have your world ripped away from you.
Yeah.
So I guess I just want you to talk more on that.
I love that.
You're comfortable sharing in your real life, but that's just what really, like, I take books. That was my biggest empathy lesson of like, oh, okay, I now understand maybe the thoughts you might have and the obstacles you might have if that's your day to day.
I love that. I haven't been asked this. I think it's such a great way to close out this launch week and celebrate with this thought, because that's really lovely. And I think like the big thing with Manu is like, she's kind of, she has to stay invisible. Like it's like, be invisible, don't count. And that's kind of what we say to undocumented people, I mean, to label someone illegal is to negate their humanity. I mean, that is to delete them. And that is, I mean, just so cruel that I can't conceive of it. I cannot, And so I think that like the experience of, I talk a little bit about the chosen one trope, because that comes up a lot because of comparisons to Harry Potter. And I think what's really important for people to understand about that is Harry gets to be heroic as his chosen one. Like he it's like he lives up to it. Manu, as a chosen one or as a powerful being, has to suppress that. So she's not seen as a threat. And I think a lot of women and marginalized identities, and particularly women from marginalized identities, feel that it's like, no, suppress that power, suppress that anger, suppress that talent, suppress whatever, because you don't want to threaten the white men in the room. Or, too often, there's like a 5-person executive board and one spot goes to a woman, the other 4 go to men. So what happens? The women have to fight for that one spot. And that is such the wrong narrative, because that keeps these 4 seats safe. And that's exactly what the patriarchy wants, So I think it's about kind of like amplifying and breaking out of that. And so my message is more the opposite of be invisible. Be loud, be seen, get seen. And as soon as you get that seat, you drag the seat for your friend up there too,
I just want to be like the parcel tongue hype man. I don't want to ask people. I just want to like hiss.
Parcel tongue.
And shake your book.
You're amazing. I love that. I love it. I'm so happy.
I also love, because the last thing I'll say is that reminds me, I was watching an interview and it was 2 men discussing The Last Dance. I think it was Kevin Hart and Joe Rogan. And they were just talking about a part in the documentary where Michael Jordan is yelling at his teammates, like, do your fucking job. And I was like, oh, we could never yell that at anyone,
Yeah.
Like, we could never yell that.
Never. Oh my God, we'd be written out. Like,
and it's funny because you're like, and you understand the passion because you're like, no, I love this. This is my whole life.
yes.
But I really appreciated what you said about like having to suppress that greatness.
Yes.
It's also like Dash in The Incredibles.
Yes.
Where like the whole movie, she's like, you can't run fast, you can't run fast.
Yeah.
Or she's like, Dash, run as fast as you can. And we're like, run, Dash, run. Run, Dash.
Yes, but it's so true. And for someone, like we talk about like the world, and who has the right to belong in worlds? Who has the power to decide who gets to belong in worlds? And when we talk about identities like these, where it's like, you don't count, we don't see you, and if we see you, we like, you deport you or whatever. Like that is horrifying, and that's a reality that like doesn't finish when you turn the last page of this book. And there are too many people who are going to be living with this like for a really long time, and we'll deal with the traumatic after effects of it, So yeah, so I think that would be the big message. Like, let's get loud, let's bring people in, let's not, and let's make it okay so that we are allowed to express ourselves with all the colorful language and emotion we want, without losing for it. Yeah, that's it. I wish we had music now.
It's the music we have in our heads. It's the silent radio. Because sometimes people think I'm not dancing to music, and I'm like, there's a song playing in here.
Well, I know you're hearing the music. I know. I guess we should welcome Christina for a question. Hi.
That was awesome.
Thank you. It's getting
I have
so
a bunch
dark.
of questions. I'm looking through them. Okay. I think I'm going to start with this one. Okay. How have your life experiences affected the setting and overall world building of your novels? It's a big one. It's starting.
Okay. So, who goes first?
You start. You can.
Okay. So how have my life experiences affected? Sorry. How have my life experiences affected what? Sorry. How have your life experiences affected the setting and world building? Oh, yes. So interestingly enough, I had the idea for this book when I was a teen because I was looking at some Spanish language newspaper my mom had on the table, and I see a headline about the president of Argentina becoming the godparent to the seventh son of some random family in Corrientes, Argentina. And I'm like, why? Why is this a headline? Like, it's a slow news day in the world, and this is so random. From that, I find out there's a law that actually states the president of Argentina becomes godfather to or godparent to the seventh consecutive son or daughter in a family. And of course, as soon as I hear that, I'm like, what is this about? Why? Like, why? And they cover their educational expenses, everything. So this is a serious deal. And so I trace it back to this whole superstition about a curse that says that seventh sons will be lobizones or werewolves and seventh daughters will be brujas. So this definitely impacted the setting and everything of the novel because I knew I was writing something sort of hybridized. Now, the reason I thought that it was important to write something that walked the line between reality and fiction, and that used in particular Argentinian folklore, is Argentina has seen a lot of this before. In La Guerra Sucia, the Dirty War, was a time when it was a horrible dictatorship and like dissidents disappeared overnight. Children were ripped from their families. The grandmothers, las abuelas de la Plaza de Mayo, to this day continue to search for those grandkids. So I just felt like there was a big warning in that, that how our rhetoric and public sentiment can really manifest into actual policy that creates very real cages for people. Awesome. I'll stop there because I could keep going forever.
I love that answer though.
Thank you.
Let's do another question because I want to make sure we get all of them.
Okay. So the next one is, I think these are kind of for both of you guys. But it's if you could spend the day with one of your characters, who would you spend it with and why?
Do you have an answer?
Always Rowan. There's no complicated reason.
I love that.
Complicated reason.
I was gonna say Manu, but now I want to say Tiago.
Yeah, no, I'm not like a Hufflepuff, so you're gonna get my. I feel like I hung out with Zaylee anyway.
Oh my god! So, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that was easy.
And I don't need her here like staring at me. So Rowan's gonna get in some trouble.
Oh my god! I would love to see that.
Okay, and the next one is for you, Romina. Did you outline book 1 and 2 of Lobizona at once, or did you write book 1 and then tackle the one you're currently working on as more of a sequel? Like, I guess, did you already know what was going to happen at the end?
Yes. What's funny is when I outlined this book, I outlined 2 and 1, and I had no idea. So, like, when I sat down to write Lobizona, and I got to the midpoint of my outline, I was like, I'm done. like, this book's done. And, my agent's like, but you outlined like a whole other half. I'm like, yeah, that's not going to fit in this book. And so we realized I'd outlined 2 accidentally. And so it wound up working out beautifully because I kind of pre-outlined my sequel in a way. I mean, I still had a lot more to develop, but it worked out very nice.
Oh gosh. Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry. Okay. So next question is, how did you guys meet, and is it Harvard related?
Who asked this? No, don't tell us. Don't out them. I feel bad. Someone must have read some of our interviews or something. Or Tomi, how do we tell
it
this?
was kind of.
It was an alumni party.
Describing things because I tell you the ABC like comedy version I see in my head. So you tell it because it's gonna take way too many liberties.
You just pitched it so well, though. I'm like, I want to hear that.
But it's like part of the problem is it's so good in my head because I have the camera angles and I have the lighting.
I know.
And like the wind blowing in the hair. So just picture those images.
Wait,
and
I love that Nietzsche just outed herself. Of course she did. Like, it was me. Okay. Well, we did kind of meet as a result of an alumni party where I already had Zodiac out. And so we struck up a conversation because Tomi had like her manuscripts and like we started talking. And so slowly developed into this friendship where we'd go grab pizza at the Grove or at the farmer's market. And we'd go to book events and I'd be like, oh, let me introduce you to this author. Let me introduce you to that author. I mean, it's pretty cool to be friends with Tomi before people knew who she was. Because it was like, and I would tell them, you're going to be sorry. And then I remember at Vroman's at my Black Moon Lodge, I like announced to everyone, like, this is Tomi, remember her? Like, look at her now, so it was one of those things where I just feel like we were cosmically linked. And I knew she was a writer. Like, there was no question from our first conversation. And so we just started supporting each other. And then when I was like, okay, now I have my next book and I need help, she, like I said, she really helped me find my power.
We're on Mount Everest together.
Yes.
Not the real Mount Everest. I don't want to climb that one.
I have
but like the publishing.
Yeah.
Which is just as tall and just as cold.
It's a real mental workout, you guys.
I feel like we're bundled up. And it really is just like, I realize that's the fun part of being, I would say one of my favorite parts of being an adult is like, it doesn't happen often, but every now and then you meet someone and you guys just click. It's literally like those automatic magnetic snaps and you're like, and it's really the stepbrothers scene of like, let's remove the bunk bed so we can have room for activities. We can do so many activities together. And it's a true joy. So I love it. Like, it's so weird to think about, but it's going to make a really good ABC family movie.
Oh, we can't wait.
So next question is, how do you guys deal with rejection and what motivates you?
Oh,
you're like, oh.
Yeah.
I know, it's such a horrible word, right? Yeah, vengeance. Voodoo dolls, vengeance, like, I mean, brujeria, like.
It's real. I mean, Donald Glover said this in an interview. He's like, I'm not petty, but I'm salty. Meaning he's like, I don't act against, like, people who don't believe in me, but I act like I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yes. And
I think I'm a little bit more vengeful, but I'm definitely like a saltine cracker when it comes to like, I live for the hair flip. I used to be like, oh no, did you have a job well done? And it's like, no, remember you couldn't teach me to write? Like, you don't actually have these conversations because that's the ABC family version where you like storm back in and you like legally wand it. And you're like, remember me? And they're like, no. You're like, well, for the last 7 years, I have fought. So that's kind of what you do. You just say, I'm going to prove you wrong one day. Maybe you use some curse words. And it's all in your head, but it works.
Yeah. And you remember, And you remember that like everyone deals with rejection, right? Like I said on this chat, like it took me almost a decade to get published. I'd written 5 complete novels, all of them rejected, And so like, talk about like, you write a novel and you feel entitled like to have people read it. You're like, I did this, and then it's like, it sucks. Okay. I did this other one. It's like, okay, I did this, and you keep going. And that's the thing, right? The lesson I took from this is if I hadn't written the next novel, I would not be here right now. And that's the lesson to take from it is no one can really reject you but you. And that's the real truth that's really hard to accept. Sorry.
We talked about that too, how it's like you were always a New York Times bestselling author. Even with every book you got, like
yes.
If you look at your life with the arrival time period, you start realizing that even for me, I feel like it was 15 years of my life, so almost half my life where I didn't believe in myself or my dreams. And at that time, I was still a future New York Times bestselling author. So you start realizing like it's a part of the story. Yes. Like what story have you ever read where they didn't face obstacles? It's like when you face an obstacle, that's what we were talking about in the beginning. Like you start seeing the story of your life and you're like, okay, secondary opponent, you're not a Snape, you're not my Draco.
Exactly, yes.
Expected Paternal. Get out of here.
I didn't even get back to the mentors.
Just, I don't know, it kind of, because I just feel like
I love
there's something about Dementors and then like the Knights of Sauron. I just feel like
it's the perfect thing for you to say though, because it ties so perfectly what you were talking about this period, which is like, what are we discovering, right? And what do you need to deflect a Dementor, right? Like positivity, good. And so that is it's
water,
friends,
and love.
Yes.
There we go.
Yes.
Now it's they saw the sparkles.
Now we got sappy. We went there. We knew we would go there. I'm sorry.
All right, guys. I'm going to ask you this next question.
Oh my God, now I'm nervous.
Okay. I like this one. It's interesting. So, Cien Años de Soledad seems to be a big inspiration and is mentioned in Lobizona. Which other Latin American authors inspire your writing?
I'm obsessed with Borges, like very, very much obsessed. I've read everything, like short stories to essays to whatever I can get my hands on. It's funny because I sometimes wonder, like, would I feel differently if I didn't know he was both Argentine and a Virgo? Who knows? But I feel a real strong connection, such a strong connection to Borges, and I felt it from the first time I read the first story of his I ever read. I remember it still, El Fin, and it's the story of this family of grudges, where like this guy goes to avenge, his father, and then it's like later on, then his kid comes to avenge him, and it's just, and the irony of it being called, the story's called The End, is that violence never has an end. And that's sort of the point. Like if you come at me with a weapon today, I'll come at you with a bigger weapon tomorrow, and then you'll come with a bigger one. And what did we just gain? Nothing. Like the only thing that really undercuts violence and everything is hope. It's using our words. It's like imagining something better. It's conveying inspiration and stuff like that. And I always felt like Borges really drove that for me, obviously like Isabel Allende, and there's like a lot, but like, I kind of feel like I didn't talk enough about Borges this whole time. And I think if you read this, like you can see some of the, like I gave some names inspired by his stories and stuff. And so it's for sure one of the biggest influences in my writing.
So another question we have, sorry, I just passed it, was what is the inspiration for Tiago, Cata, and Seiza?
Okay.
Broad.
So normally I try to invent characters like from that soil, right? So like I try not to transpose too many like, people over to other worlds because it wouldn't be right. Those people were raised in this world, so they are that, So I really try to make it unique, But what's funny is Seiza is the name of a reader I met in Spain. And I told her, I was like, I'm going to use your name in my next thing. And she did not believe, she was way cooler than me. And like, she was like, you know, and did not care. And so then when I got the deal for this and I knew like, all right, this is it, I spent like 2 hours, okay, on Twitter because I like remembered a vague tweet she'd sent once so I could hunt down her screen name or whatever it's called, handle, and like write to her and be like, look it, I did it. You told me I wouldn't do it. Well, guess what? I did it.
Leaving to spite others.
Yes. Spite is the best motivator, you guys.
Even when you're positively spiting them.
Yeah. I was like, take that. Now you have a book with my favorite character named after you. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? She was just like, that's cool. She's like, all right. Like, I'm too cool to react. But like, that was like a lot of fun. And then, so Thiago is just, I mean, I just was like, this is who I want to date now. And that's kind of how I approached the romantic interest. Like, who do I go? Oh my goodness, there's a little face peeking out and that is so cute. I can't. Okay, sorry.
It's making him happy. Okay, we have a couple more here. I'm thinking this should be our last question. So let me pick. Ooh, I think I'm going to pick this. Any favorite, it's a good like closer. Any favorite reads of quarantine?
Oof.
Oh.
Or
what are you reading? What have you read lately that you
The Vinyl Underground, amazing. A Phoenix First Must Burn, amazing. Yes. Woven in Moonlight, we were just talking about before this, amazing. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna blank. Cemetery Boys, amazing. Oh my God. Yeah. I start to get nervous too, because I'm like, oh no, I'm not mentioning one I loved. And now they know, and now they think I hate them, you know, and I get very, but yeah, that should be enough for your TBR to get started.
That's a great little stack. Yeah, for sure. Okay, guys. So I think we are ready to, we're ready to close this up. Thank you both so much. Thank you, Romina, for choosing to work with us for the pre-orders and the signed copies. Again, that green button still works. It'll work if you watch this back later. You can get a personalized copy if you order before Monday, August 10th. Leave us a note in the order comments with the name you want the book made out to. So green button. And then I want to thank Tomi Adeyemi for taking the time to be with us tonight. I want to thank the Speak Up Summer Camp attendees who are with us. Thank you, guys. I hope you had a great week. And everyone else who tuned in from around the world, thank you so much. One last reminder for our Books and Books merch fundraiser. It ends tomorrow. So if you want a tote or a t-shirt that has a Borges quote on the back, order it by tomorrow. And yeah, our next YA event is August 13th with Raquel Dillalen Vasquez for her beautiful book, Cia Martinez and the Moonlit Beginning of Everything. So give us a follow. Don't miss out. We'll see you soon. Order Lobizona, green button. Thank you both so much. Have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.